Hello! So today I'm going to go through some of the poles that everyone keeps asking about for trail running. We're going to go through some different types of poles that you can use, different techniques, and some tips and pointers to try out in your training. And as with anything, the key takeaway is always go out and practice this stuff. We want you out in local hills, local parks. You don't need a mountain to go up to practice with your poles. Training for the UTMB in the UK, I've been around the local parks, practicing taking the poles out, using them for a few steps on the flat, putting them away, little bits like that. You get used to them in any kind of any terrain. But different types of poles that we're going to go through today. A lot of them fold down, so it's a foldable pole as opposed to a non-collapsible pole. This is actually just this is a extendable one, so you can vary the height of it. Quite useful for testing different heights and stuff like that, but actually practicality wise, using in an ultra when you're not always going to have them out in your hands being used, there's not really many places they can go unless you've got a bit of a quiver on the back and you're very aware of any low hanging bridges. Other types that we're going to try, you've got the 3-part one here, you've got 2-part poles come here, again a little bit less practical, a little bit more effective for some people, and they can be quite lightweight because you've got less connecting bits. You've then got the type of connection. So this one here has got a handle or a loop. These are the common types I've seen. And these ones here are the Lecky ones. They come with a little glove, and your hand slips in, and the glove connects. Much better power transfer of power, but a little bit less practical when you've got to be doing eating, drinking, stop and go to the toilet, anything else you want to do. You've got to clip in and clip out. If you, whichever one you choose. We'll go through both today, but practice with them. Practice clipping in and clipping out. You can do that on the kitchen table. Clip in, clip out, clip in, clip out. Find out what works for you. I personally always go with the handle ones because I find that I just don't do some of the other stuff that I want to be doing, like eating and drinking, if I've got the others and if I've got the gloves on. I do use them for cross-country skiing because the transfer of power is a bit better, and I can't eat whilst I'm skiing anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. Here's one I made earlier in terms of a fully extended pole, and we'll go through quickly here. You have the loop up like this, right? You put your hand through the loop, above there, and then you drop down, and then you're holding onto the pole. You're not actually holding onto the pole, all the tension comes through your wrist. The reason behind this is if you're gripping the pole, and I've seen like US runners cut off this loop because they see it as excess weight that's unnecessary. If you're gripping the pole, you're using all the little muscles and tendons in your arm, your hand, your forearm, your shoulder, your bicep. Not really big muscles in runners, I must say. And then finally you've got like the decent muscles at the back of your back and your shoulder that you're not really using because you're gripping so hard. You're going to tire them out so much quicker. When you're doing it like this, you're using the skeletal system to push. So actually, I'm pushing down now here, and most of the actual effort is coming from the upper arm, especially if I'm driving backwards here. It's all back, shoulders. This is all soft and useless. Up here, actually being used. And it's when you're driving through at that point there, the biggest part of the push, you want it coming from. If I'm gripping here, this is all tense. This is all tense. I know you can't see that because there's no muscles anyway. And then this is actually still doing the work. When it's like this, there's a lot less tension in the arm, and you're driving back. Tension's there in the pole. It's being pushed, but it's coming from the upper body. Same with any other poles there. Like if the gloves are in there, it takes that. You haven't got a grip again because you've got the glove. And I'll go through the technique. When we get closer, your loop is up like this in the air. That's terrible. I'll use this one because it's folded. Loop's up in the air, hand goes through like this to the wrist and then drops down. The tension is in the wrist. You can have a light grip, kind of almost for comfort, but if you're actually tensing, you can see the arm just kind of all those muscles are working, whereas they're like this, they're pretty chilled, they're not going to tire out too much. Knacker him. Not so tough. We're going to do another bit in a second with Sophie doing some of the techniques. We're going to go through single poling, the traditional diagonal stride as it's called, and double poling. So I'll pause this here and hopefully we can get on to the next one. Once again, I'll just go through how you put your hand onto the pole through the loop, like so, drop it down, drop it down. Hands can be free while still applying pressure to those poles. You can hold on to them a little bit as well, but make sure that's a gentle kind of comfort grip rather than a tense grip. Two types of technique we're going to go through today. Double poling, my favourite. Diagonal stride, the more traditional one that you might have seen a lot more, used a lot more often. The diagonal stride is, oh look, there's Rosa. Ah! The diagonal stride is Rosa's favourite. She's going to come and demonstrate now. And it involves actually applying the, come on Rosa, the forward pulse is the opposite arm to the leg. We might have to pause this now, aren't we?
No, we're good.
Gone for a sec. The opposite arm to the forward foot, right? So your left foot's forward, your right arm's forward, and the kind of, you want your pole slightly kind of leaning back, right? So it's leaning back, leaning forward really with the direction backwards, and then you're not kind of overstretching. You see some people kind of overstretching the arm and the leg, or overstretching the arm to kind of pull it forward. You don't need to be overreaching. It's not a super tiring technique. You're in there, and then you're pushing through as the other leg comes through, and then it's all the way back. So the longer you are actually engaging and pushing backwards, the more benefit you're getting out of this. As I've come forward there, naturally the other hand has come forward in line with the other foot, and then that pushes as that one comes through. Again, you want to be pushing from the shoulders, going up the arm. We'll do it slightly more faster motion in a second. So I'll try and use the diagonal stride. It's not my usual technique, so I'm a bit rusty. But what you want to look at is what my arms are doing, the length of time they're engaged, right? So actually in the process of pushing backwards, and hopefully the technique of where they're landing should be next to my foot like here, kind of level, but with a bit of a lean in there, so I can pull backwards on them. Saying that, you'll probably film it and it'll look terrible. Now we'll go through the double poling technique, or the double poling but slightly offset. This is where you've got both poles ahead of you and you're pulling backwards and going through. So again, coming through and holding it all the way, probably to right back here, and then bringing them forward. And that offsets is the tap tap. I just find that helps a little bit kind of how it keeps them with my normal kind of cadence and stride. It's just a bit of a tap tap rather than bang pull. This becomes a bit more unnatural, just keeps it more in the rhythm of the running. And then again, pulling through the whole way. It might be multiple steps in between each. And the reason we use this one, I find this one slightly better, and this is again coming down to personal preference. So get out there and practice what you want to try in the race, and you might use different techniques during different parts of the race when the terrain changes, or if you're tired, or if you're kind of just want to vary it up a little bit because the arms are sore. And what I would think about in the difference there is actually the benefits of it, right? So when we're using this one here, we're coming through, and from this moment here, I always say to people, imagine you're on roller skates, right? You're dragging yourself through, you're getting benefit from these poles all the way to here. Then they're coming up again, and the whole process starts again. With the diagonal stride, you've got it here, you've got a benefit through here, and that's it. Now I'm changing onto the other arm. It's almost like using a much higher cadence on a bike. There's a lot less power, but you're doing it a lot more often. And the power you're applying isn't just the torque, the amount of strength you put through there, it's that plus the cadence. So if you're doing a slightly gentler tap through, you're applying a little bit less power in that kind of push, but you're doing it more often, it can actually, for some people, again, be more beneficial. If you're more tired, it might be useful to try that diagonal stride. But what I would say is just be aware of doing something like this. Because I'm not actually pushing backwards. I'm just walking with poles. And you can just walk with poles if you like, if you think they make a good accessory, and you want to just look like you know what you're doing, but you're not really sure if you know what you're doing. You can just walk with them. And a good sign, if you do get and practice on a longer day, if you can get to bigger hills, if you're in the UK, even getting in onto Box Hill and practicing, you're going to get the benefits of it. At the end of that day, how are your arms? If your arms are totally fine and your legs are tired, I would say you're probably not using the poles correctly. your arms will feel the end of that at the end of the day. And in the same way you train your legs for endurance, you've got to train the arms for it. So when I'm coming through and I'm doing this, I'm engaging the muscles in my back, I'm really pushing through, I'm pushing myself uphill, all the way back to here normally, and at the end of the day, I'm going to feel that, because I'm repeatedly using my arms. The benefit of the higher cadence diagonal stride is, yes, there is maybe less muscular strength in one go, but you should still build up some tiredness in the same way that when you were running. So if you're not feeling that in your arms at the end of the day, or if you're feeling it in your forearms, look at your grips. If you're not feeling it in your back and your shoulders by the end of the day, think about your technique and actually think about the amount of time you are engaging with that pole, pushing forward, pushing through. And it may help, if you're using diagonal stride, to think about a slightly longer stride. With a short stride, you've got very little time to benefit from the pole. Right? You're not going to naturally push back, and if you're short stride, if you're pushing back too far, you're twisting the body, which can become a bit more unnatural. It's not really benefit. You don't want to. It's not a competition to see who goes sideways the most. You want to go forwards. If you have a slightly longer stride, you've got more time to engage in each single step. And if you're going uphill for a long time, yeah, depends on the gradient as well. The steeper it is, the more you're going to want to use a shorter kind of a cadence, and the steeper it is, the more likely I would double pole, because you can keep the cadence small. The benefit flows from it. And again, you don't have to run. You can walk. Walking is probably a very effective method in ultra running. I do use it myself. It's not like I have to pretend I run up all these mountains. But yeah, even walking with a small cadence, like a quick higher cadence, it's going to be beneficial. Try what works for you. If you're in the group with us, let us know what works and test things out. Look for tired arms and the tired back and shoulder muscles towards the end of the day. That's a sign you've been using them properly. If you feel great and your arms never feel it and it's always your legs, ask yourself, are you really getting the benefit of using poles? And would you be better off with having your hands free to eat sandwiches tomorrow?